Good evening, and welcome to the March 23rd, 2016 legislative session of the Penfield Town Board. Tonight, there are two aspects, two parts of this meeting. We will first do the legislative session, and then we'll take about a 5-minute break so we can get to the back of the room, and we'll have our normal work session. We will start that right after this meeting. So with that, I'll officially call this meeting to order. I'll ask everyone to please rise. And this evening, we have the presence of past Chief Jeff Whitthall. We have our town Assistant Fire Marshal Jeff David from the Penfield Fire Department. Gentlemen, will follow your lead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Penfield Fire Company. I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Cole. Here. LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler. Here. Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here. We will move on to communications and announcements, and I'll recognize Councilwoman Metzler.
Thank you. I just have one announcement this evening. I have been working with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to introduce neighborhood watch programs throughout Penfield with neighborhoods. And certainly if, I'm putting out there for all that if you are interested, either your neighborhood or your homeowners association, in having a neighborhood watch program, I can help you do that. I can help you get started and also help facilitate it from this point on. I'm working with Captain John Ott, who's the commander of A-Zone, as well as Deputy John Favada, who is our A-Zone crime prevention officer. So this is a joint partnership between the town, with myself representing the town, and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to create neighborhood watch groups throughout Penfield. Much is done online, depending upon a neighborhood's involvement with social media. We use that. And so far, it's been working well, and I just wanted to offer that to all neighborhoods, that if you are interested, we can certainly come out, we can have a meeting, we can tell you different options for Neighborhood Watch within your neighborhood, and see what you all might be interested in having done from a scale of minimal neighborhood watch opportunities to larger scale involvement of neighbors. So I just wanted to announce that tonight for everybody, and there will be information on the website as well to contact me at metzler@penfield.org if you are interested in getting some more information about Neighborhood Watch in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. The Penfield Town offices will be closed this Friday in recognition of Good Friday. However, the library will be open normal hours this Friday, but they will be closed Easter Sunday. Mrs. Cole.
I just have my announcement that my next community chat will be on Tuesday, April 19th from 5:30 to 7 in the new book area at the library, if you'd like to come and talk about anything. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Public participation, 2 ways to do that. If you're here in the audience, you can call in at 340-8771 or log on at penfield.org. I'll ask the clerk, has anyone signed up to speak tonight?
No.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Yes, Jerry.
My name is Gerald Russ. I live at 101 Heather Drive. I've been a resident for 34 years now. And I'm here, you know, despite my admiration for members of the board, I've really come to take you to task. I understand this is a done deal now, but I have always felt that the strength of municipal government involves citizen support and participation. I'm sad that the board has seen fit to reduce the number of members on the planning board, which I think is a very important citizen advisory board, from 7 members to 5 members. And I think in our county that's unique. Almost all of our neighboring communities still have 7 members on their board. I think what the effect of this does is this reduces citizen participation. It reduces diversity of points of views, different ideas, and so on. And I think that's exacerbated by the fact that the remaining 5 people on the board have served such long terms. It certainly defeats the intent and the purpose of citizen advisory boards. And I hope that, that you'll revisit this matter soon, and expand to a more reasonable number.
Thank you, Jerry. Mel, or,
Lisa's got
Mel
it.
Callan?
okay.
Good evening. My name is Mel Callan. I'm at 1410 Harris Road. And I was here about 3 weeks ago, and I raised a couple of different issues. One was about the PCTV issue in not having the ability to have rebroadcasting done for us in the town of Penfield. And I reiterated some issues about that. I don't have to go into back again tonight. But it has been 6 months since we've had the ability to do that, and those of us that have been paying franchise fees would appreciate being able to have the rebroadcasts available. I have at least a list of at least 50 people who have raised concerns, and those are those that, as you can imagine, have the time to be able to either write or email the town, or the ability to email the town. So I know, even talking into some friends and neighbors, that there's certainly been more of those folks that have raised issues about the inability to view rebroadcasts on their home TV, which is, I think, the way most of us would enjoy as a family, whether it's an older couple, a younger couple. I've been amazed that even younger people have said, hey, what's going on with PCTV? How come we can't see any of the rebroadcasts? And then the community programmability, particularly with hot issues like certainly Shadow Pines that you're going to hear more about tonight, and you're going to vote on tonight for the moratorium. Thank you very much. Appreciate the board's interest in that. But also the cider mill on the corner of Dublin and Sweets Corners Road. I know that's another hot issue. I think these are things that people who live in the town of Penfield are very concerned about and would appreciate having the ability to have that rebroadcasted on their home TV. I know the school district is very interested and very concerned about not having that ability as well. And it would really be a waste of taxpayers' monies to replicate services like that, any kind of cable television, to suffice for the school district folks. And it's $65,000. I know that there's $3 million plus in surplus, and I know that some of that is really delegated to even having a rainy day fund or designated for other agenda items, budget items, but I think $65,000 can be well afforded. So I plead with you, please, can we, and I'm going to ask you hardcore tonight, can we please accommodate and appropriate to replace the hardware that's needed? And I don't understand about technology, but I do hear that it's a $65,000 cost to replace the hardware needed to be able to rebroadcast. Is that something that can be done?
We, as I have indicated a couple of times, Mel, we're looking at a number of different things, and we wouldn't be doing our fiduciary responsibility if we didn't look at all those. We were having some conversations with Rhonda Coit. Obviously, that's turned upside down a bit as the current supervisor is now going to become the county clerk. So some of that might fall by the wayside that we're going to have to pick up and work on. And our team downstairs continues to look for other alternatives and working with other communities as well. So
I understand, and I appreciate that. But even before the town supervisor became the county clerk, there were certainly cost issues about, and again, I don't understand the technology, but the ability to provide and have joint services like that, was it really going to cost the taxpayers much money? So it's been 6 months.
So you seem to have more information on that than I do.
I just hear
my hat's off to you for following
from
it that close.
Friends in other towns that, because I think there's even been discussions with Webster, neighboring towns, and it makes sense, can we share services? But again, to understand the technology that it would cost to be able to share those kinds of cable television services, it doesn't seem like it would save a lot of money, from what I understand. And that has nothing to do with the politics of the supervisor in Arundecoit. So I've heard these discussions even before that announcement was made.
I mean, the politics of the supervisor, I was the one that reached out to the supervisor of Arundecoit to partner with him. So that was more what
Right.
made good business sense versus politics.
Right, and I don't mean to insinuate that you weren't reaching out to him. I understand it, and I think that's wonderful. What I'm saying is, with the recent appointment, you know, all that turns into political stuff. But before that, and I think as two supervisors, you probably had a very congenial conversation, no problem with that. But you're probably not, and you and this Arundecoit supervisor are probably not as well-informed about technology stuff. So I understand from talking to the folks that really deal with that kind of technology, you know, and taking a serious look at it, being objective and trying to see where we can have the cost savings. But really, is there a dollar amount of cost savings that could be saved that would be even come close to $65,000?
I don't know the answer to that question because we started down that path, but we haven't completed that total review, Mel.
Okay.
So I don't have that answer today.
All right.
It may be less, it may be more until we see the details. I mean, the devil's always in the details.
What time frame are you looking at to be able to make a firm decision before we can replace this piece of equipment?
I would say that over the next couple of months, kind of my interest and my goal is by about mid-year to try to come to some conclusion, if that's possible. So that's been my personal goal. Obviously, again, we've got to vet some things out and make sure that we're spending money properly. And then there's always the case that the budget for 2016 has been passed. And so to spend $65,000, we've got to take it from someplace else. It isn't
Yeah.
always as easy
I
as
understand.
as you relate, you know, for $3 million for fund balance. The fund balance is broken into a lot of different categories, some restricted, some non-restricted, for capital, for equipment reserves, for building reserves. I mean, it's all broken out in a lot of different components. So if you don't spend it for that, you spend it for PCTV, then we have to identify something else that doesn't get done.
Yeah, and that's why I was hoping before the budget was passed, because it's been since
Budget was
September.
passed in October.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been since September since we've had it, so that it could have been incorporated into the budget. And you say equipment failure, this is a piece of equipment failure that I really hope we can get corrected. And I'll come back and see if we can.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
The other issue I was bringing up, I will reiterate what my friend Jerry Russo has said, the planning board membership. This was an issue that, again, I brought up about 3 weeks ago here at this meeting. It remains at 5. Now, this may sound like a true feminist, which of course I am proud to be. However, there usually is some diversity in these kind of boards. So there are 5 white males that are on the town board, and I have no problem with their credentials. I think, you know, they're probably very well-informed and experts in that area. But I do think we need, number one, some diversity. And I think, like all of our neighboring towns, we need to bump up the membership to 7, like it is in all the other towns, and like it was previously here. And even the terms of office. I mean, a couple of those members have been involved and part of the town planning board for 19 years, 14 years. I think we need some change in there just to get a different perspective, rather than have, you know, reduce the public participation because it's concentrated in the same group of people year after year after year. And with these issues that are coming up, that's going to be, the town planning board is going to be facing, like Shadow Pines and like the cider mill, I think it's going to be healthy to have a different perspective on some of those planning board issues. So will there be any consideration of increasing and going back up to the usual membership we've had of 7 people on the town planning board? Any discussion about that?
Yeah, but the discussion we'll have about that is that each year, towards the end of the year, we have some number of people that are up for appointment or reappointment. Some elect to resign because of business conditions, or they can't make that commitment. And every year, the board takes a look at all of our boards and makes whatever appropriate changes we feel that needs to be made.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I would hope, I do believe out of all the number of residents that we have in our town, that there are other folks that could participate and have a level of expertise that you need for a town planning board, that we can maybe kind of change the membership so it's not, some towns even have terms of office. 6 years, 8 years, I think those are more reasonable, but 19, 14 years, I think it would be helpful to have a different set of eyes look at some of the plans and be able to provide that kind of counsel to the town board.
Okay.
And lastly, Tony, you and I have had discussions about that, and you were very gracious in allowing, as you know, I'm a member of the Coalition to Prevent Lead Poisoning, and you were very gracious to have a couple of our members come and present to the Town Supervisor Association. Our own town, is there going to be any plans to inform any kind of home remodelers and contractors that there is this EPA rule, the RRP, renovation, painting, and I forget the third R,
Yep.
to make any changes in a home or a building structure, that people be aware of that RRP rule in the town of Penfield? Any change to have that on the building permit?
So one of the things that we did, we did reach out to Irondequoit. Irondequoit has got a form that
Right.
is signed off, and we took a look at that. And we took a look at that piece of legislation. Our building, zoning, fire marshal, code enforcement officer actually had some conversations with Irondequoit as well. The concern that I had is that, you know, they don't see an avenue to enforce it. Well, there's some guidelines and some rules. They don't see an avenue to enforce it, and to put something in place not to be able to enforce it. So I've asked our town attorney to take a look at it, because obviously our administrator is not you know, has a legal background, and want either, you know, our town attorney or deputy town attorney to take a look at that, just to see, because again, if there is no teeth in it, I mean, it's an awareness thing, and certainly I'm okay with making people aware, but if there is some problems, there are some issues, but there is no teeth to deal with it, that's another issue. So awareness is the key.
Right, and I understand that, and I can appreciate that it wouldn't necessarily be up to the town for enforcement, but the teeth is, there's a severe EPA fine
no.
if they find out about it.
Yes.
And so anybody could call the EPA and say, do you know this kind of work is being done without certification of the contractors, or even anybody who does any work on the home for repair, renovation, and painting. So there's a hefty, and there's been up to $10,000 fine. So there's teeth in it from EPA. How that gets communicated to the EPA that someone is doing something
Right.
without that certification could be anybody. Could be anybody calling in. So I can appreciate the town can't do much to enforce it, except to be aware of this going on, this violation going on, and then perhaps report to the EPA.
And so we have been, you know, handing some materials out to at least make contractors aware, especially remodeling contractors. Doesn't appear to be as much of a concern with new builds, but obviously when you start to
Right.
do the remodeling and you get into the mid-'70s or older vintage, that's where the concern
Yeah, and
is
that,
around the lead.
to be clear, you and I know it's for any homes that were constructed before 1978.
Right. So,
Okay, thank you very
great.
much.
Thanks, Mel.
Samuel Ogie.
Thank you. So Sam Ogie, I reside at 1924 Clark Road. I have a couple of questions related to the moratorium on shadow pines. I know we have the vote coming up, and I think given the support that the moratorium received at the last meeting, I think we are anticipating being very pleased with the result of the vote tonight. But my questions are related to what happens after that. So we've heard that there are 80 or 90 people who have expressed interest in being on that planning committee for the moratorium. We heard you say that it's something like 16 or 17 people from the community that you plan to put on it, maybe, if I remember correctly, 11 neighbors, and then people from outside the community. But if we have 80 or 90 people who've expressed interest, then obviously there have to be other criteria that you're going to use to select from among them, beyond just are they neighbors or aren't they neighbors.
Right.
So what are those criteria? What are you looking for? Are those criteria going to be made public when you're making that decision?
So our plan, as we continue to vet that out, Sam, is that we'll be looking to make that appointment of those individuals at our next town board meeting, which is April 6th, the next legislative session. And each one of the board members have gone and done their own vetting out. We have had some discussion around that. Certainly, we're looking for people that have an interest, and if you have 80-plus people that have signed up with us, there's the interest. Are they willing to make the commitment for the number of meetings and the number of hours for that? Are they willing to participate and be involved and not be a wallflower? I'm not looking to put any political people on that committee, either current or past. And the board is also taking a look based on letters and emails that have come in with the background that a number of people have indicated that they could bring, something to that table. So the board are taking a look at all of those factors. And once we identify that number of folks, my office will be sending out a letter indicating that they have been selected, and here are what our expectations are, and are you willing to and able to commit to that? And if so, that's great. And if not, I'll respect that. And I've asked the board to, as they give me their input and feedback, to include an extra 3 or 4 people, so that in the event you have some folks that can't make that commitment, that we will respect that and then go on to the next person.
So what kind of qualities are you looking for in their backgrounds?
Certainly to have a broad background of qualities, some job experience, certainly just living next door, that's a component, but that is not going to be the only component. What job experience or college experience or life experience that their resume indicates. We'll be taking a look at that as well. I will say it's going to be difficult whenever you do something like this. You've got 20 people that get selected that are going to be happy, and you've got approximately 65 people that are not going to be happy as you go through that.
Well, and that's why I ask about the criteria. I think most of the people that are volunteering are doing it not for personal glory, but because they think they can offer something to help. And I would encourage you to articulate the criteria that you use and articulate why the people you've chosen were chosen, because part of this process, I assume, is to get the community to coalesce around whatever the recommendation is that ultimately is adopted by the town. And I have extensive experience in strategic planning with hospitals and health systems around the country, and communication and articulating priorities is a critical component if you're trying to gain support. If you're just going to vote and that's the way it's going to be, then that's not important, but I suspect that's not what you're hoping for.
That's right.
So I would encourage you to set that criteria down.
I'll say that, it has to be the golf course, and that's the only thing it can be. Then, we don't even have to go through this exercise with a moratorium or anything like that, right? And so everything's going to have to be weighed out as we take a look at it. What's viable, what's realistic, based on, a number of the things we talked about in the past, infrastructure, and things like that, impact to schools and what have you. So that group has got a very important task as they try to figure out what is that best right use for those properties. And when I say those properties, even though Shadow Lake here earlier this week indicated that it looks like it's going to be sold, my concern is what happens 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
Of course.
And so we can't. Well, I think it's a win that it appears as though it's going to be purchased by a member of the Odenbach family and a business partner, and continue to operate as the golf course we knew it, Shadow Lake. Again, the thing that I think we have to keep our eyes open to is what happens in 5 years. So that's why I think it's important when we go in with this committee that we're taking a look at both sites and what is that impact, today and in the future.
Okay. And that leads into my second question, which has to do about what's the charge to the committee? We've heard that they're going to evaluate what the best use of the property is, but best in what way? What are the criteria that we're going to use to weigh different uses against each other? So I ask that partly because I've started working on financial analysis myself. I've reached out to the school district, and they have chosen not to communicate with me or Save the Heart of Penfield on what their financial analysis is. But as part of my strategic planning, I've also done financial planning for not-for-profits and hospitals around the country. So I'm familiar with how it's done. I'd like to build a more refined model than I have, but using publicly available historical information for the school district, it looks like it's reasonable to think that at steady state, we may have $1 million per year shortfall in the school budget, comparing the school taxes that those houses would bring in against the increased spending net of state aid that we can expect. So if we think, and until the school district chooses to share any information with us, I will go with my own analysis. So if we are to think that maybe it's $1 million shortfall, what do we weigh that against? What are the other criteria that we are going to use? Obviously, there's a separate analysis for the town, and I would very much like to
and the
talk
county.
to someone from the town and the county about that. But what other criteria? Well, someone has to be deciding what best means. And who decides what best means? Is the committee going to decide that for themselves? Is this town board going to decide what best means and how we weigh, particularly in a town setting or in a not-for-profit setting, it's not just about money. And how do you weigh dollars against mission or dollars against town values? So there has to be some process for identifying what those trade-offs are going to be. So who is going to do that?
So this board has the ultimate responsibility to do that. And similar to what we did, Sam, for the mixed-use committee, the town essentially put together a framework which we're currently working on. And we'll have it on the actual website with that as well. And as we were doing the mixed use, we were identifying, what it was that, the mixed use meant for the town overall. And then we asked the committee, based on that, to go through and review all of the potential options and bring those recommendations and feedback back to the town, which they did, and which the town board will be holding a public hearing on in April. And one of the things that we did is that we provided all of the resources that was necessary for that discussion. So we had the town finance folks, we had the county finance folks, we asked the school for, input and things like that. And then we brought in whatever other resources that the committee asked for, whether that be town, county, or state. And our intent is to do the same thing for this committee as well, to give them the resources needed or necessary as they're vetting out what could be done for the property, for the properties.
So I'm sure this is going to be a very thorough process, and it's encouraging that you're going to make a lot of resources available, but that's not really the question I was asking. For example, if the goal here is to minimize the tax impact on the town, then we should be asking Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's or some other commercial business to develop it. I think based on what we've heard from the community, that's not what the community wants.
Right.
So what are the values and who's going to decide how we rank the various criteria that can be used? So there's preserving open space, there is the impact on the taxpayers. What are those criteria that we're going to use to judge the different options, after we've assembled all of the data, after we've done all the analysis, we still have to measure those analyses against some evaluation criteria.
Right.
So who is going to set the priorities and the
So again,
evaluation?
this board will be the ultimate decision makers based on the input feedback that is presented to us from the committee. I would say that it's very safe to say that you would be hard pressed to find anybody on this board that would support a Walmart on that 210 acres of either one of those golf courses. So while that may generate the highest and the best return from a tax base standpoint, because we're not sending kids to school, so it doesn't have any impact there, and it provides the highest and the best return to town, county, in the school district. But that's not something I think anybody on this board, and obviously they can speak for themselves, but I would say, knowing the board, you would be hard pressed to find the board supporting a Walmart at either one of those locations. So then it gets down to, the goalposts, as I indicated before, one of them being, remain as a golf course, and is there someone or some entity out there that's willing to, continue it on as a golf course? And then does this board at some point change the zoning from R120, which it is today, to something that might be, that doesn't exist today, but might be something along the lines of a recreation district or some type of a open space district or something like that?
Okay.
That would be another component that we'd have to take a look at.
Okay. So is it fair to characterize what you said as the town board puts in place the moratorium committee? The moratorium committee will evaluate all
Everything.
of the impacts and present the board with their analysis and their pros and cons. So the moratorium committee will develop a set of criteria that they're evaluating, present that to the town board, okay, and then you make the decision.
Right, that is correct.
Okay. So we should expect to see some articulation of criteria from the moratorium
That
committee.
is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if you would like to come in and have some conversation, please give my office a call.
Okay.
And I'll make arrangements with our town controller, and she can fill you in on all aspects of our budget, and we tend to do a 3-year projection. So when we build
Okay.
our budget, we project out 17, 18, 19, so that we're looking at that horizon. So she's got that information. Obviously, the further you get out, there's more assumptions, but still, it's a good planning tool for us as we're taking a look at the budget on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. I will
Yeah.
contact you tomorrow.
Absolutely. I look
Thanks.
forward to that. Thank you,
Mr.
Sam.
Ogie, Mr. Ogie, real quickly here on the town board over here.
I didn't know who was talking to me. Andy, okay.
Is it possible for you to put that together in a Word document and email that to us?
I have an Excel model.
Perfect.
I'd be happy to email that to you. I'm sorry about my
That's fine.
handwriting. But I certainly, if I email it to you, I would like to talk to you about it and make
Okay.
sure that it's clear how it works.
Happy to.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Lisa, anyone else? Is there anyone else? So I've got Kevin Gallagher, excuse me, sir. I got the gentleman out back. You'll be number 2, and then Bob be number 3. So stay close, and we'll get to everyone.
Thank you. Sorry about jumping in front of you. My name is Kevin Gallagher. I live on Dublin Road, 1973. On February 29th, I suggested to this board that an agent or representative must be retained to vigorously protect the rights of the town of Penfield in relation to the 2002 Conservation Easement Agreement. Since then, a petition, Protect Dublin Hill, has been created and distributed, and as of this afternoon, there are 65 names on paper and another 138 online. The general intent is to protect Dublin Hill, and I will present those signatures for the petition time that's later in the agenda. It is our intent to show you that protecting Dublin Hill is an issue of importance to a sizable number of residents. I am presenting the paper petitions tonight And additionally, I'd like you to know, I would also like to know if any of the petitions were delivered to the town hall, because that was a delivery option that was available. The online petition can be found through Facebook page or the website change.org, Protect Dublin Hill. The online petition will remain open for new names until this issue is resolved. Additional comments from signers are available to you and the public on the same petition page. At this time, more than 200 people have signed the petition, and we're thankful to those that signed, and we encourage more people to do so. Also, for those who want to protect Dublin Hill, we've reserved a room next Thursday at 7 p.m. at the community center. This issue is more than a not in my backyard issue. This is a not in my front yard issue. Let me explain that. There was an accident that occurred several years ago. A sports car with 2 occupants, not unlike the 2 shown in the 3D rendering for the cider house, was heading south from Dublin Hill. They lost control, they slid across the lawn, they struck a tree and almost hit a house. The tree saved the house, and the occupants lived. When neighbors express concerns about things like this, it's not wild imagination. These are genuine concerns based on real-world experience. The cider house proposal includes production, sales, and service of alcoholic hard cider. There is already a documented known problem with unsafe traffic on Dublin Road. How much is this proposal going to affect the traffic and safety on the road and in the neighborhood? How are residents going to be protected by additional traffic and the added potential for drinking and driving on Dublin Road, Sweets Corner Road, and the nearby unsafe intersections at Route 250 and 441? This is more than just protect Dublin Hill. We need to protect the people on Dublin Road, Sweets Corner Roads, and within Penfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to hand off some petition.
We appreciate that, and then that'll also be shared with all the board members. And the original will be with the clerk. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Fisher. I'm a resident of Rochester, and I'm very much supportive of the moratorium that will be voted on tonight. I did attend a meeting here a month or 2 ago on the subject. It was overflow meeting then, so rather than come to the public hearing, I thought I'd watch it on the web, since PCTV does not come into Rochester. And I watched many things streaming, but had great difficulty with this. It was a very jerky, pixelated image. I couldn't hear the continuity of voice. It was just unlistenable. So I couldn't follow that at all. People here in Penfield would not be aware of this problem because you watch it on television. And I do have Time Warner Turbo level, so I'm told that the problem is lack of bandwidth in the broadcasting. So as you're looking at the issue that Ms. Callan spoke to earlier, I just wanted to encourage you to look into the optimal website service. And I think it's great to be able to preserve this as a golf course. I know generally houses with children end up costing more because of the cost of education than the taxes that they generate. So the golf course economically makes sense. I know my barber who lives in Webster comes in regularly for golfing and spends money in the town and does not require any services from the town. So hope that all works out on the moratorium.
Thank you. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you for coming tonight. Bob?
Good evening. Bob Peterson, 1931 Clark Road. Tony, I'm wondering, when you do vote on the moratorium and get around to setting up the committee, you'll probably be giving the committee a tasking order or some form of a mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask you to specifically include in that the committee be looking at the reclamation plan for the quarry. It's right in the center of, well, it's right in the center of town. It's sort of the 600-pound gorilla. But I think it's time to really look at what the plans are for when the quarrying operation ceases and it begins to fill with water, because as I'm sure you're aware, all the manufacturing facilities are down in the pit. The grinding towers, the conveyor belts, even the asphalt plant, the oil storage tanks, the maintenance shop. All that stuff would need to be cleaned out. And I mean, really cleaned out if we're going to use that for swimming. I'm not sure what the plan is going to be for the town use of that, or even who will own it, but I think it's time, this is the time to start thinking about that. So I would ask you that you, specifically charge the committee to take a deep look into the reclamation plans. I know it's difficult to clean out oil, pollution in a site like that, because Brady's mobile station is still sitting vacant, and I'm sure it's because of that.
It is.
So, with an asphalt plant down there, and we don't know how long that's going to be going. I think you said something like at least 15 years, perhaps.
They'd indicated up to 15 years for the asphalt and 30-plus years for, the quarrying aspect of it.
Now, did they have a permit for 30 years? Did they feel they've got that much aggregate available? It looks like they've pretty much run out.
Yeah, I can only share what they shared with Mr. Costello and myself and Mark Valentine, our town engineer, when we met with them a number of months ago. So that's the best information that we have, 15 and 30.
If a developer came into the area to put homes in there, you'd be asking for their plans, their site plans. I think it's time to be asking Oldcastle for their site plans. So what's going to happen with that? Will they bring sand in to make a beach? Will they break down the edges? The western boundary and the eastern boundary is a 120-foot cliff. It's a sheer drop-off.
Right.
If anybody's going swimming there, there's no place to wade in.
Right.
You're either in or you're out.
Right.
So things like that. What happens to the berms, the fences? Who will own it? But I know we can't answer these questions now, but I'm asking you to charge the committee to dig into that.
So certainly, when we take a look at, the moratorium aspect of it, the moratorium relates to the 2 golf courses. So certainly I'll have some conversation with our town attorney because, the moratorium doesn't include that area. And because we don't regulate that aspect of it and the DEC does, it may be one of those experts that come in, to speak with the committee to talk about that broader quarry aspect of things. But certainly we'll take your comment under advisement as we put the charge together.
It's a little bit hard to make reasonable plans for the adjacent properties, Shadow Pine, Shadow Lake, if you don't know what's going to happen in the middle.
Okay, so we'll certainly take a look at it.
I don't know if you've looked at the reclamation plan. I haven't really read it in detail, but it's sort of skimpy. They have posted a bond of $180,000 for the reclamation, whatever that means.
Right.
If you have an environmental brownfield site there before you flood it, I don't know. I don't think $180,000 is going to cover that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I think one of the other things that the committee needs to take a look at is that over the years, both of those courses have put down chemicals to control a number of different things for a number of different years, and what impact has that, if any, created overall as well. So I mean, there's a number of factors certainly as we vet this out to look at.
The assumption is it's a lake that'll be usable for swimming, fishing, and canoeing or whatever, but we don't know whatever. But
right.
I think it's time for the committee to look into that.
Okay. We'll take that under advisement. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for coming. Tim Murphy, good to see you up and around.
Good evening, Town Board. Tim Murphy, 48 Corral Drive. It's good to be here. I had three things to discuss briefly. Certainly a couple of questions about the moratorium, but first and most importantly, I think you folks all know it, but just for the record, 6 weeks ago tomorrow, the Penfield Volunteer Ambulance Corps came to my rescue. And it's beyond words, Tony and Town Board. I was over there today for an hour, and they filled in the blanks of what happened, and I'm so unbelievably grateful, and the community should be as well. It was a terrible thing with a best possible outcome.
Yeah, very positive outcome.
So I know they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and whatever we can do to recognize them. And just to mention names, Joel Barrett, I had a 45-minute conversation with Joel today. Kate Sullivan was a trainee. Rich Bowens was a driver. And then my hero at Southeast Critical Care Quadrant is Mark Afrani, because he took the reins and he made all the difference in the world for me.
Yeah.
So whatever you can do to acknowledge that would be greatly appreciated.
All right.
The other thing to say is within 24 hours, both yourself, Mr. Supervisor, and Linda had sent me a note. That meant an awful lot to me. I couldn't believe how many people reached out. But, I mean, we put everything else aside when these kind of things happen. And thank you for doing that.
Yep.
It meant a lot to me.
Thank you.
So, but live to fight another day. So I have some questions regarding the moratorium.
And hopefully many more days.
Thank you, Tony. So I have a question like Sam about the process. And I know it's early days, but, you know, setting some expectations. And I've been around the town enough, you know, participated in a number of committees. And, you know, very pointed question is, who's going to lead this moratorium committee? Sam asked about how we're going to select folks, but honestly, it takes project management skills, I would think.
Absolutely.
Acumen, experience, et cetera. And again, I know most of you folks don't have corporate experience. I know I've been well-trained in project management, and unfortunately, I can't volunteer, but I'm sure that's a critical component of this, whether it's something you go get, you know, from a third-party engineering firm, or you find it in-house, but somebody that can run the meeting, action items, you know, really due process, the due diligence part. And not to be overly critical, but I went on the website today, and I'd mentioned to you this before, meeting minutes, you know, have been missing. The zoning board, there hasn't been anything from this year. Conservation board, none. The planning board looks like it's up to date. You know, we've heard about the Baker Commodities folks and the lack of some published minutes and action items, at least their point of view. I mean, we have to do a great job with this. And again, my point is, and my question is, who do you imagine running the moratorium committee? Who's going to sit in the chair up front, call the meeting to order, and make sure the good things happen?
I don't have that answer right tonight, Jim. That's been a big question that this board has discussed, and looking at different aspects, including going on the outside to bring in a facilitator. So, but don't disagree with you that we have to have a very strong facilitator.
Yep, project management, facilitation are the right words.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Also, just again, looking at this from my point of view is, and I participated in the open space project back in, it started in 1999 with the inventory. There was an update published in 2006. I know there was another update done in 2014. Again, I would think that's a bedrock for the conversation about what we want the community to look like. I don't see that in plain view on the town's website. Again, I've talked to a couple of people that have participated, and they've asked the same question. Where is it? So it's 2016. Again, I believe that was all completed in 2014. Again, if you're looking at any kind of possible zoning changes, and I have a document here from New York State that is a different topic, but again, it points back to having a master plan. And certainly an open space plan is another document. So I guess my question is, where is the 2014 open space update?
Well, I see my friend, Mr. Valentine, making a note back there. He was part of that team, and we'll follow up with that. That piece I can't answer tonight, Tim.
But would you agree, Tony, again, if we're looking...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's an easy question to answer.
Great. So kind of related to that, again, and this is part of what I do as my former profession, is, you know, I looked at the comprehensive plan, and, you know, I have a couple of pages here from it, and the map that really shows the zoning is missing the quarry. There's a big green space that goes end to end, Shadow Pines to Shadow Lake, but a big miss is the quarry, and there's a lot of discussion, whether it's the environmental impact or future use, you know, how it influences the conversation. It's missing. So my question is, can we go back and amend or update the 2010 master plan to make it current, to show, you know, and to support our conversation around, hey, this is the space, there's some well-defined intentions in there, but it's missing the quarry. So I guess my specific question is, can we go update the master plan here, the 2010, in short order to make it current and complete?
So certainly, we've got the ability to go and make changes or updates at different times. There's a process that you go through to do that. And we put in place 2010. So we're about, round numbers, we're about 3 years away. So we can take a look at that and have some conversations about that, Tim, to discuss what those next steps might or could be.
Great. Again, I think it supports our position. We all want the same thing, I believe. We want to keep the quality of life and the green space a big part of the Penfield community. So, if we can short order here, maybe some kind of subcommittee, again, to do a quick review. I know these plans typically take a couple of years, but again, what we're talking about in the shadow pines and the green space, let's get after it. Let's see if we can get that updated. Also, related to that, and again, this is talking about project management and process, but also in the comprehensive plan on page 142, it says future land use, and then it says implementation plan. And there's some very generic things in here. But what stands out to me is, it lacks specificity. Responsible party, town. It doesn't have any dates, doesn't have any next steps. It has potential partners, but again, it doesn't drill that next level down. If you're building a house or, a big facility, you're going to have very detailed components here of the tasks. And again, I would challenge you in terms of process as we go forward in here. Let's have specific dates. Let's have specific owners. Town doesn't cut it. So I would just call that out to you and ask you, and I'll be looking for it. I hope it's part of the output here, but we can do better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
That's it. And thank you. Again, anything we can do to recognize the great people at Penfield.
PVEI.
Rob, please. Tell them thank you. I get goosebumps. Unbelievable bunch of people, and thanks for being part of it. Oh, sorry, one last thing. I wanted to hand this off. I'm not a lawyer, but I referenced it last time. Zoning and comprehensive plan talks about spot zoning. I think there's some good language in here, but I don't get it all. But on section 5, again, it talks about how to be able to change zoning. Normally, it's going the other direction, where maybe an industry is trying to come in, but here, the community's trying to save green space. Again, I need somebody like Mr. Horowitz or somebody we put on retainer to talk to this, but I've heard this is one of the documents that we want to make sure we reference and understand.
Tim, they already have all that.
Okay.
I shared that one with them, as well as there's actually one on moratorium from the Department of State as well that I emailed out to them. And you're correct in terms of spot zoning. Spot zoning, the analysis is not what type of zoning you're going to, but it's the reason for it.
Yes.
That has to be
And again, that's where it goes back to the master plan. If we
Yep.
can show that we were
process.
heading in that direction.
the process,
Right.
exactly. Yep.
So too much information rather than not enough.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Burns, 39 Scarborough Park in Penfield. I also want to thank the ambulance folks for saving my friend Tim Murphy and doing such a wonderful job. And also want to support them in their 50th year here. Tim referenced the open space plan and the committee. And in 2002, the town had voted on a referendum to borrow $10 million, as you know, for the purchase of open space. And it was easily passed by a 2-to-1 margin. In the open space report of 2006, it says that much of the land that had been protected up to that point was on the east side of town, and it recommended that future purchases be done in higher population areas on the west side of town, coincidentally right about where Shadow Pines is. Also on that 2006 report, it said it's always been intended that future generations will reap benefits as well from the actions being undertaken as a result of the open space plan. For example, the costs of providing services such as schools, roads, sewers, and other public services to residential development will be eliminated for those lands preserved from development. So a good reason for protecting land in open space. Property values, it says in the plan, continue to rise, perhaps reflecting the desirability of preserving the open space character of the town. So I hope that this will be strongly considered as we go forward by both the task force and the town board. I wanted to ask, though, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Tony, was when were the open space funds depleted? As of 2006, 4 years after the referendum, already 80% of the funds were depleted. $8 million had been spent, leaving $2 million. When were the rest of the funds depleted from the open space fund approximately?
I'd have to go back to our controller, Jeff, to get that. I think, if memory serves me correct, we've got less than $100,000 left that's specifically earmarked within that fund for open space. As you can imagine, that doesn't buy a lot today, but it's specifically restricted for that purpose. But I would say between 2006 and probably into early, 2010, 11, I think is probably safe to say. But again, we can sit down and have that conversation with the controller. And if you need that exact specific detail.
And when was the loan paid off? Was it a bond or what was the structure?
It's a bond, and we're still paying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what is the balance remaining on that, do you know?
I did ask our controller this question. We still owe $3.9 million through 2022.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Yep.
Thank you.
And with something like that, does that get refinanced when interest rates drop? How does that work? Is it like are there opportunities to refinance that?
We do. We will take a look as opportunities present themselves. Sometimes the bonds will come up, they'll be what we call callable. As a matter of fact, Mr. Horowitz, myself, and our controller are meeting with our finance folks, Bernie Donegan, tomorrow. And on an annual basis, we take a look at the bonds and the ones that are callable, and we have the opportunity to potentially refinance. And we do an analysis to see if it's worth doing, because obviously it isn't free to refinance.
Right.
Even though you might get a lower interest rate, you got to make sure that any and all the fees, are taken care of, and you still get some reduction in the overall. So we do that on an annual basis on all of our bonds that we've got.
Okay.
And I will say, to the supervisor's credit, with his financial stewardship through his years, we have been able to save taxpayer dollars by refinancing. And just to give you a perspective, because I asked Barbara, the controller, this question, but in 2004, 2005, actually when the bonds became in effect in 5 and 6, we were rated as an AAA3. Now we're at AAA2, so we've been upgraded since then. And again, I think part of that is because through the years we've been very mindful of how we utilize these funds, how we do go out to bond. And the project recently, the Whiteville Park, the Parkview White Village sewer project, was significantly more cost-effective because of the upgrade over the years and the refinancing and the efforts that Bob Beeden and Barb Chierdo and Tony have done over the years. So, but yes, we do look at those.
Do you happen to know what the interest rate is that we pay?
I did ask that question.
Yeah.
I think it was going to be a much more intricate answer than something I could have gleaned over the phone.
Right.
Unfortunately, I had not been able to get into our office.
Okay.
We have variable rates,
and there's a lot of
Jeff,
factors.
depending upon, what it is, when it was originally bonded, if we've been able to have the opportunity to refinance. So we've got a number of bonds that have a number of different rates. So if you want to, if you would like that specific information, give me a call and we can get that level of detail for you.
Yep. Somewhere on the town board, on the town website, I saw something concerning this, is the incentive zoning law, that part of the intention of that was to provide funds for open space. Do you know how much money from the incentive zoning has gone to open space, or?
Yeah, I think that most of that has gone more to public works than to specific open space.
Okay. So a question I would have is, would it be appropriate to look at, in the past, there was that open space referendum for money to be able to purchase open space. My impression from the open space plans was that there was a intention to continue purchasing open space. How are we going to go forward and be able to purchase it? What will be the funding for purchasing open space in the future?
Borrow money.
What's that?
Borrow money.
Right, okay. So is that
I
something?
mean,
that would-
typically, that's with anything that size.
Yeah.
If you didn't, have dollars specifically set aside, like I say, I think we have about 100,000 or less left in that account dedicated for open space acquisition. You would either have to, over the years, build up or borrow. I mean, those are really the two options.
So for the referendum back in 2002, or it was necessary to have a referendum in 2002, would it be necessary to do that again now if we were to borrow money?
I'm not going to play the role of attorney, but I would look to our attorney for his guidance. I would tend to say yes, because for as many people that are out there that have an interest in open space, there is a similar number that do not want their taxes to increase, through any additional borrowing. So I think that's part of the reason why it went up, the size, the amount, and of what was looking to be borrowed, and give the residents an opportunity to weigh in.
Right. But is it necessary to do a referendum, or is it a decision the town board can make?
It's a decision the town board will make on any kind of financing.
Okay.
Exactly which way to go and why.
No, I mean, so the decision whether to do a referendum or not?
Is at the town board
Okay,
level.
yeah, but the town board isn't required to do a referendum if they wanted to borrow that
Every
money.
every borrowing does not require a mandatory referendum. Only
Okay.
certain borrowings at the discretion
Okay.
and judgment
Okay.
of the board.
So you were saying, Tony, that was to give participation of the public to? Right, okay.
Just based on the amount.
Great. You had said that the decision with what happens with Shadow Pine will rest with the town board after the task force makes its recommendations. Is everything on the table, or is there anything off the table in terms of what might happen? If they recommend to purchase Shadow Pine, will the board follow the recommendation, or will they?
We'll certainly take a look at that. I mean, one of the things that I would expect with that recommendation would be, how would it be funded?
Sure.
All that detail, I mean, not right to the dot the I, cross the T, every detail, but a plan of how it would be paid for, and all of that criteria as well.
Okay. In terms of the task force members, one of the things you said earlier was that you're not looking at putting any political people on the task force, past or present.
That is correct.
Would you define what a political person is?
I'm looking at one right now.
All right,
So you're one. So I would say that you would not be considered for the committee.
So a political person would be anybody who's ever run for...
I would say any active person in any one of our two major parties that, is an active member of that committee, has run for office, been heavily involved with the political component. I would say for both of those parties that would be my recommendation to the board.
So this would exclude anyone who's ever been a member of the Republican Party in Penfield or the Democratic Party in Penfield?
That is correct.
Okay. The committee, not the party, yeah. Thanks for that correction. Yes.
Committee.
So what about community groups? What about Save Shadow Pines? Would it exclude people who are involved in a community group?
Are they, if they're not political folks, certainly, and they've indicated interest, they'll be vetted out like anybody
I
else.
mean, it hasn't been a political group. It's a nonpartisan group that goes across, and that's not an issue, that's not part of what it's about.
So if you've got someone that has not been active in politics and is a member of that committee and has indicated interest to be on the committee, then, certainly they will be given the due consideration.
May I ask why I would be excluded? Why would somebody who has been involved, I'm basically
Because
interested in...
I'm trying real hard to make sure we keep the politics out of this, and my sense is that it's been, politics has been trying to creep into this process. So I'm trying to, as we take a look at this, this decision that we're going to make is going to be one that's going to have a lasting impact, and I want to make sure that we set the politics aside.
Right. I just want to make sure that we have a fair representation on the committee and that it's, on the task force. There are other people.
I don't even know who's on your task force, Jeff. I'm
No, I'm
taking.
talking
just
about your
taking-
task force.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the board, again, will be looking at, those 85 people that indicated an interest and, selecting what we believe is the best candidates to work this process.
Right, okay. Well, I'd have to state, I think that's an unfair exclusion, as I'm a resident, and there are other people who are on the committees who are residents of the town, and that they deserve to be heard as much as anyone else, or to participate in the committees on the town. And there's been a history where we feel as though, or it seems as though, that many of the committees have excluded Democrats. And I'm a bit alarmed that this may be stated in this case. Now, I understand you're saying both parties,
I said both parties. I just wanted to make sure you heard both parties.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, and I look forward to the vote tonight.
All right, great, thank you. Yes, ma'am, way in the back, and then, ma'am, you in the front right after that? I normally have a microphone here. Could I impose, is there a microphone in that shelf right below you by chance?
Yes, there is.
Perfect, thank you. So you can stay right there, ma'am, and I'll bring that out to you. So please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amy Rainier. I live at 58 Edenfield Road, Penfield. I don't live in Dublin Hill, but I live just down the road from Dublin Hill. So I'm here to speak about the cidery. At the first public meeting of the cider house, people told the planning board why they were against it. When the public portion of the meeting ended, there was an executive session held in the back of the room. Though it was not easy to hear, when the board members spoke, it didn't sound like any of the neighbors' concerns were addressed. After that meeting, we were able to get some information regarding the open space plan, the original conservation easement, and the town referendum. As it turns out, many of the issues we brought up are covered by the contract. Things like agricultural, the natural beauty, are supposed to be protected. It seems like the planning board was not aware of the rights of the contract, or they are ignoring the public input. We would like the board to listen to the ordinary people that live in that neighborhood around Dublin Hill. We would like someone to speak with us, and maybe someone with a respected reputation as an attorney. Either way, this is a town issue, a town contract, and town money. So the town of Penfield should be protecting the rights of that contract, and we hope the board would support that also. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to? Oh, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kaz. Maybe. I think you're just going to have to push the mute button, and then Jim will, right after that. Just give that a tap on the top.
Hello?
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin Pajeric. I live at 18 Huntington Meadow, and I was at the last meeting about Shadow Pines, and I just wanted to re-speak to one of the issues I brought up again. When I'm healthy, I spent a lot of my time walking up and down and around Shadow Pines because the teenagers like to go in the bushes and drink once the weather gets the least bit warm. And allegedly they cleaned up, but they really didn't. I would haul daily. I would haul huge black garbage bags of beer bottles and wine bottles and Coke bottles and all sorts of paraphernalia that the kids had thrown back there. And that's when they were allegedly cleaning up. Now they've taken down all the signs and just put up some no trespassing sign. If you think that's going to keep the teenagers out, you're crazy. And I want to know, are they required to do any maintenance or upkeep? And at least, if not in the center of the course, I'd like to at least have it up and down Clark Road and the edges of the golf course, because, I mean, it really brings down our property values, because the trash has a way of meandering down the road into our yards, and it's really unsightly. The other thing I had brought up was when IBM pulled out of the IBM Country Club in the southern tier, they just turned off the power and let the buildings to rot. And you can go on the web and see how the ceilings collapsed and the floors buckled and the pipes burst in the walls. Are they being required to keep the heat going in the buildings and keep those up? Because if there's any chance of getting a golf course going again, and somebody comes in and they haven't kept the maintenance up, they're not going to want to spend the huge amounts of money to fix the building. The other thing that happened to the IBM Country Club is the teenagers went in and tagged all the buildings. And they tried to make IBM go in and clean it up and paint, and IBM said, nope, not going to do it. And it's an ugly eyesore, and I don't want that in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. So certainly, and I apologize, Jim, but certainly that is a concern that we have as well. My guess is that if it doesn't sell for a golf course soon, immediate, that the maintenance is going to not be the same as what it was when it was a golf course. And that's going to be something that staff and myself have been having some conversations about what is that regularity and what does that look like. But for every day, week, month that goes on, they lose a little. And that makes it maybe even less profitable for somebody to come in and pick it up and take it over. So, all right. Jim.
Talking, but we were asked to make some signs available if you guys would like some for your yards, as I'm sure you've seen them around the Penfield area. We'd like to donate those to you.
So is that different, Save the Shadows different from Save the Heart of Penfield?
No, there's different, I mean, it's kind of one and the same. Okay. There's different, a lot of people are working with different groups.
Got it.
I made a film, it's called Save the Pines, but I'm working with some of the groups, so. I lived on the 5th hole at Shadow Pines since it was built until 5 years ago. Now I live on Huntington Meadow, Denonville, about 500 yards away. Just a couple comments. Do you guys have discretionary funds, whether it be the conservation funds? I can tell you pretty factually from my conversation with Oldcastle in Atlanta, that they're pretty much abandoning the golf course. They're selling off the equipment. They were taking tractors out of there today. I have it in writing that if we were to put an offer in to buy the golf course, or to buy their real property is what they call it, there would be no golf carts, mowers, or anything. They're selling those off, okay? So we've probably got at most 60 to 90 days to find a buyer that can start maintaining the golf course. And that's being nice, okay? In terms if there was a long play where something could happen, but the financing couldn't happen right away, and it would take a while to make all this happen. If the town saw that there was a pretty good chance of this happening, would they be willing to jump in, or could they jump in to do at least basic maintenance on the course? And I don't know what that is, okay? I do know it'd probably be cutting greens a couple times a week and rolling them, cutting the fairways, okay? What it would cost to rent the equipment, I have no idea. But is there funding that if something came up to save the course that looked like it might happen, it just couldn't happen in 30 or 60 days, could the town jump in and either force them to maintain it or provide the funds to do that if it wasn't a large amount?
So we have a property maintenance section of our ordinance that staff has been having a conversation about. That tends to be if someone has, there's been a foreclosure, someone just walked away from their home and what have you. We've got a section of the code that we can go in and do that and then charge it to the tax bill. So the town upfronts the money and then we charge that to the tax bill. I would say that we're probably not in the business to cut 210 acres and the wherewithal to be able to do that. That's your question is one that is complicated to answer.
I understand that.
But I don't see the town of Penfield being in the business of maintaining a golf course just to help extend 3, 4, 5 months until we're either able to pick up someone to buy it or what have you.
I wasn't speaking of extending it to find a buyer, but if there was a buyer that was up with a plan, okay, but it was going to take a while to execute, okay?
So certainly I think anything is on the table for discussion, Jim.
Okay.
I can't sit here and nor the board sit here and make any commitment because we don't have the facts and the details of what that might look like. I don't know what their bill is. I can only tell you that we rough cut something in the neighborhood of about 115 acres and another 115 acres that we have a contractor do for us. And, we spend, close to $50,000 to do that. And that's not a weekly cut.
Right.
In a lot of cases, that might be a monthly cut.
Or a couple times a year.
Or a couple of times a year, yeah.
Okay, my next question is probably for the legal people. You've read the spot zoning. We've all read what comprehensive master plans in terms of how a town needs to follow those when they try to do zoning and things like that. My question is, since we don't have a zone right now to put for recreational or open space, and yet all the documentation from the town, actually going back 50 years, but specifically in the very last comprehensive master plan in the open space, there is no question about what the 2 golf courses are. Okay, they're open space, and their golf courses are recreation. Okay, and that's what we all call them, and that's what we all expect them to use. In 1966, the first master plan that you had, as far as I can tell, called for the town to look into shutting down the quarry because the population had grown around it. Okay, and then 10, 12 years later, the first golf course was built, and 4 or 5 years later, the next one was built, okay? And so since that time, that hasn't been an issue, okay? I can't find anybody complaining about having a quarry in the middle of town, okay? We have 3 sides of the quarry being buffered, okay? If it'll help the town any, I have 1,000 pages of documentation written by the Dolomite Company for their mining applications, their CEQAs, all this stuff. And in every application in the last 36 years, they call it recreational open space. When they say, do you have any plans to subdivide this land? They say no. Do you have any plans to cause hospitals, schools, any increase? No, 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 no. Everything's no. And then when it comes to the reclamation plans, it's the same data with them talking about Penfield Lake. On 5 Mile Line Road, they own some property there, and there are also some individual houses. All the property, if I remember right, is labeled parkland or something similar to that, okay? They talk about, in addition to Shadow Pines, they talk about an additional recreational building with a walkway from Shadow Pines over to the Penfield Lake where there's fishing, water skiing, scuba diving, the whole 9 yards. So my question is, since we're in concert with them and what the plans are, if the task force comes up with and says, hey, we need a recreational zone, and we're going to do 2 or 3 levels or whatever it takes, and if the task force says this needs to be there, and the spot zoning supports it by law, okay, is that something that's possible? I know you can't say yes or no, but is that something that's possible?
Would you like to take a crack at that, Mr. Attorney?
Everything will be looked at. The zoning ordinance is a flexible document. Circumstances in life change, and circumstances certainly here with the golf courses have had a fundamental change, which requires some study, which the town is going to be doing, and all options are going to be on the table, including, as you suggest, recreational district will be considered, I'm sure.
So the answer is, we don't know, but it's possible.
Correct.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
It's been recreational for 50 years.
Well, yeah, but the
Almost.
zoning, in their applications, they always call it, is it R120? Okay.
And the factual truth is that's how it's been used for the last 50 years. So in terms of the character of the community, it's there already.
You mean the golf courses?
Yeah, the recreational golf courses have been there for 50 years.
Right. Okay, can I bring these signs up to you? Or would you like to pick them up?
You could, well, we're not going to post them on town property. I mean, that's a policy that we have. But if anyone likes them, would like one, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing, Jim, thank you. Others? Yeah. Yep, before we do that, let's make sure there's no first-time speakers, Mel, and then we can go from there. Any other first-time speakers? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Katie. I apologize, I didn't see you.
All right, my name's Jeff Katie, I live 1728 Dublin Road. Obviously, I'm opposed to the bar that you're trying to propose to put up at Suites in Dublin. We need to protect that piece of property, and failure to protect the rights sets precedents. It undermines the rights and makes it more likely that they'll be violated in the future. It seems very possible that some of the rights within the conservation agreement contract have already been violated. On the west side of Dublin Road at the hill, there's a tall fence around part of the property containing the trees. This fence may be a violation of the conservation easement contract, and at the same time, the bar and manufacturing facility developer has proposed a similar fence around the entire property, which is 27 acres. This gives us an obvious example of the proposal. Also obvious, these fences will drastically degrade the view there. The vistas, the views, landscape fences are all specified in the conservation easement contract. So why do we, the residents, have to protect the rights of the easement contract? Why do we have to do this on our own? Though this is a localized property, the developments were purchased by the town for over $1 million. So why isn't this a town-wide issue? Back on March 10th, we were given the opportunity to speak at the planning board meeting, but in the last, 2 to 3 hours before the meeting, the topic was adjourned. So Oak and Apple have retained a lawyer and asked for more time, but we can't afford to lose the first round. It will then become an uphill battle with an appeal. We need to decisively win the first round. The proposed bar developers have got they've got attorneys now, so we need to get some attorneys, and so that the town, we don't really understand everything. It's a lot of stuff going on there, but, we need to protect this piece of property and can't go too fast with this thing.
So I know Mr. Horowitz, as well as Pete Weisshire, who is our planning board attorney, have been having conversations about this. I think you and Mr. Horowitz may have spoke last week, on this. So those are our two town attorneys that advise not only this board, but also advise the planning board as well. So they have been reviewing everything associated with the easement, the state law aspect of things, and what have you. So those are the individuals that we rely on to advise our boards.
Well, now we're going to go ahead already, I guess it's on the 14th or something, we're going to have another planning board meeting with these people, the Cider House bar.
I haven't heard that has been officially set up yet. Has it, Mark?
Yes, the public hearing date is set for April 14th.
Great, okay, so it's captured in the record, Mark Valentine, Town Engineer and Planning Director. It's scheduled for the 14th of April. Okay. And that's a public hearing before the Planning Board?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other first-time speakers? Okay, Mel?
Mel Callan, 1410 Harris Road. Just a couple questions. One, the time starts, the clock starts ticking for the moratorium, the 12-month moratorium tonight, presuming that it will be passed tonight, or no?
So I think it's safe to say it'll be passed tonight. Then it has to be filed with the Secretary of State, and that takes anywhere from 10 to 30 days. And again, I don't want to play the attorney, but then it would become official upon the filing?
Correct.
So, again, roughly 10 to 30 days after tonight's meeting, then we'll get official notice back from the Secretary of State.
Okay, and presumably that will be on the website?
That is
town's
correct.
website, okay. And then how long after that what's your time frame in terms of appointing the accepted members of the committee? And
I
having a first
indicated
meeting?
earlier, April 6th, at our next legislative session.
To
appoint the committee.
Appoint people? Okay. That's great timing. It sounds like it was going to take 30 days, did you say, for 10 to 30 days?
10 to 30 days. So we passed the resolution tonight for the
So
moratorium.
you can appoint committee
Then we-
members before you get the official word?
Well, it is, again, I'll let Mr. Horowitz explain the process, but it's essentially a fait accompli
Okay.
that you have to file, so it's part of the record.
Okay.
And, I can't think of a time where we didn't, get acknowledgement that, whether it be a moratorium or a new law or a zoning change, anything like that.
Okay, well, it's good to know, because that gives, I think, the committee time to get going.
Right.
So that they can have the first meeting soon after they get the official word. That's great.
correct.
And just lastly, I know Jim had talked about the Save the Shadow Pines signs. However, just as people are interested in it, you can go to our website, saveshadowpines.org, or Facebook. And we've gotten like 1,300 people that are interested in the Facebook aspect of it, so. It was showing.
We got a number of different angles, Sam, so it's.
There you
it's-
go.
It's there.
Okay. So again, if people are interested in obtaining a sign or joining forces, and it is a very bipartisan. In fact, I don't even know the political affiliation of many of our supporters on that group. And I will acknowledge that I am not an appropriate person to be on that moratorium committee.
Neither am I.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Other comments? All right, there's another opportunity to address the board on this or any other matter at the end of this agenda as well. We'll move on the agenda, and I'll ask, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make one addition, Resolution 16T-089, authorization for Supervisor to sign a contract with Solar City.
Okay, great.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. That will show up as Resolution 089 under new business. We have the February 3rd, 2016 minutes before us. I would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I move that the minutes of February 3rd be approved.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Petitions. Other than the petition that was presented tonight, is there anyone on the board, town clerk's office, or town attorney that has received any petitions? Okay, seeing none. Move on to resolution by function. We'll start with law and finance, number 085.
Adoption of local law number 1 of 2016 to be known as a local law to effect a moratorium and prohibition within the town of Penfield of public golf course redevelopment.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board of the town of Penfield wishes to adopt proposed local law 1 of 2016, which would put into effect a moratorium and prohibition within the town of Penfield of public golf course redevelopment on real property located within the town of Penfield. Whereas the town board of said town of Penfield held a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on March 2nd, 2016 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider the said proposal and to hear all persons interested in the question of the adoption of this local law. Now therefore be it resolved and hereby is enacted by the town board of the town of Penfield as follows. Local Law 1 of 2016. Title: This local law shall be known as the Moratorium on and Prohibition within the town of Penfield of public golf course redevelopment law. Under the section of purpose, intent, and findings, the purpose of this local law is to enable the town of Penfield to pass a stopgap zoning measure for a reasonable time frame to preserve the status quo while the town considers amendments to the Penfield zoning law to ensure that future development preserves the character and quality of life within the town of Penfield neighborhoods and to control and prevent potential harmful and adverse effects of the golf course redevelopment. This moratorium and prohibition applies to any other action other than for improvements to a golf course, to a public golf course, and/or its facilities. I'd also like to mention under finding of facts, I'd like to read a few. Number 3, Penfield is steeped in its agricultural tradition and is committed to the historic preservation. It also looks at future with community-based long-term comprehensive planning. With a strong public mandate from the 2002 open space referendum, Penfield has protected more than 1,200 acres for agriculture and recreation use to date. The town of Penfield and its residents consistently demonstrate their commitment to the preservation of land, natural resources, and the quality of life for future generations, and together present a collective desire to conserve these critical assets. In September of 2002, the town of Penfield received an award from the upstate New York chapter of the American Planning Action for its open space plan. The town was awarded the 2002 Outstanding Planning Project implementation for its efforts towards resource preservation. Under Section 5, duration, this local law shall be in effect for a period of 12 months. Under Section 6, prohibition and moratorium, there shall be no permits or approvals given by the appropriate board, agency, or official of the town of Penfield for the purpose of redevelopment in whole or in part of any public golf course within the town of Penfield for any use other than a golf course. Applications to the town of Penfield for improvements to a public golf course and/or its facilities shall be subject to the prohibition and moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments by any of the board members?
If I can, just real quickly, Mr. Supervisor, I would first like to thank everyone here today and watching this for their support of the moratorium, both for the Shadow Pines and the Shadow Lake properties. All the conversations acknowledging my support for this moratorium are greatly appreciated, and I truly mean that. I'm glad to see the Shadow Lake property being purchased for golf course use, and I look forward to the 2016 golfing season. Regarding Shadow Pines, I just want to reiterate my comments from the public hearing we had a few weeks ago. I do not support the advertised 290-home massive residential development on the Shadow Pines property. With this said, I will be voting yes for the 12-month moratorium resolution because I truly think it's the right thing to do for our Penfield community. Thank you.
Other
Few
comments? Yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Metzler?
Thank you all for attending tonight. Certainly, a series of circumstances has brought us to this very important vote tonight. This is not a common position for the town board to be in by any means. It's a bold step. This moratorium on development means a great deal to our community and its future, and what legacy in town we all wish to leave for our children. What we want the town to look like when, hopefully, they return to Penfield, as I did, to live and raise a family, and as each of my fellow councilpersons did as well. I think about the development that I have seen in my lifetime, and even more so the development my parents and my grandparents saw in Penfield, since landing here in Penfield several generations before me. We've seen the town grow, we've seen the town change. Regarding the properties which will be subject to the moratorium, this is very personal to me. I grew up within walking distance of the quarry. So did my dad. This is a picture of him. It says 43 on the back. I believe it would be 1943 when he was 11 years old. He's standing near the quarry, and that's Mickey the St. Bernard, who followed them there. I don't know what, if he were here today, he would say should be done with the Shadow Pines and Shadow Lake properties. I know one thing is for sure, he was not a golfer. But I do know that he would look me in the eye and call me by my nickname, which I will not reveal, and say to me, do something. And that's what we're doing tonight. And I intend to vote yes for this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, seeing no other comments, I'd ask for a roll call vote on Resolution 085.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you.
Authorization for supervisor to sign a license and hold harmless agreement to allow a fence within a drainage easement at 135 Galante Circle.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield hereby authorizes the supervisor to sign a license and hold harmless agreement for the owners of the property at 135 Gallant Circle to permit a fence within a portion of the town of Penfield drainage easement located at 135 Gallant Circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit to allow live music in the outdoor dining area at 2124, 2126 5 Mile Line Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a conditional use permit pursuant to 250-5.10D17 of the code to allow live music, outdoor dining at 2124 through 2126 5 Mile Line Road. Resolved that the Penfield Town Board held a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on April 20th to hear said application. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
I think we
Seeing-
thoroughly vetted this at the work session meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting an informal neighborhood discussion meeting regarding a possible pet hotel at 125 Panorama Creek Drive.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas 125 Panorama Creek Drive requests informal neighborhood discussion with the town board, regarding possible development of a pet hotel on 11.6 plus or minus acres at 125 Panorama Creek Drive. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield shall hold an informal discussion at the Penfield Town Hall on April 20th, 2016 at 7 p.m. to consider the possible development of a pet hotel. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
I'm sorry, just for clarification, this is not a public hearing, it's a discussion with the neighborhood. Thank you.
That's what I was going to offer up. Thank you.
Great minds. All right, seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Great, thank you.
Authorization for,
Before we do that,
okay.
we're going to that takes us through the resolutions on the agenda. We do have one new business, but before we get there, is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll now move on to new business, number 089, please.
authorization for supervisor to sign a contract with Solar City.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved, on April 15th, 2015, the town board approved a resolution to allow the supervisor to sign an agreement with Larson Engineers to provide the necessary planning, financial projections, competitive bid evaluation of bid response, and final recommendations to develop and implement a solar PV system on our town property. Whereas on November 18th, 2016, the town board approved a resolution to allow the supervisor to sign an agreement with Harris Beach Attorneys at Law to be named solar PV system consultant for the town of Penfield. Whereas based on review of provided materials, Harris Beach and Larson Engineers are confident that Solar City will successfully develop the proposed system to generate savings to the town of Penfield. Thank you.
Thank you. So discussions. This resolution has been a long coming resolution. This is one that we started, as you can see, early in 2015, and currently under the current program for the award from NYSERDA. And NYSERDA has got this figured into their plan. And again, a lot of work by a lot of folks. We did have a public information meeting because this is proposed to be erected on our site at Jackson Road, adjacent to our DPW. And we did have a public information meeting. Everyone that spoke in favor of this. This has been supported by our Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. And now through a lot of work doing our legal due diligence, this particular purchase power agreement is at a point that can be signed. So, seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole. Aye. LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. This is our last opportunity for public participation for tonight's meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Ed, please. Gentlemen, if we could just ask maybe to take that out, just out of respect for the speakers. Thank you.
Ed Lindskog, 40 Willow Pond Way. A great place to live, like I've repeated in the past. A little update on what's happening with what I will call Willow Pond Woods. I wish the town board had put a good name on the property, something that would be appealing to the neighborhood. We did a walkthrough survey, myself and a representative from Mark IV and Jim Costello. He pointed out to Mark IV some issues that need to be addressed. They were received, and they probably will be addressed. But there seems to be some reluctance to restore the property to its original state, which was basically an open field before it was allowed to deteriorate. I'm looking for some additional help from the town. Maybe we can involve a new landscape plan for the area. Right now it's a tangle of rose bushes and buckthorn and stuff like that. Any help that the town could give me other than what's been provided already for me would be greatly appreciated.
Ed, is this private-owned land? Or
It is private-owned land.
Private-owned land?
Yes.
By Mark IV?
It's privately owned land by Mark IV, that's correct. I in conversation with Jim, he stated that it was developed under a 278, which designated it open space, but that doesn't mean, like we all know, that it's going to be protected forever. And that's the neighbor's perception right now, is that it's going to remain open space.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
it still needs to be maintained in some fashion.
Yep.
Thank you.
And they certainly could rename it. I'm not necessarily, and it sounds like some of your residents aren't necessarily wed to, Willow, or, what they have it named today, Willow Pond Woods. I mean, you could...
That's my name. I don't-
Yeah, okay.
There's
They
no
can
name
name it-
on it at all.
they can name it anything they like.
There's no parking or no dumping.
Yeah.
That's the signs that are up there right now.
So maybe that might be something, the renaming of that Mark IV might be willing to do.
I think
Linscoog Park.
Right, I think we need a little friendly persuasion from the town to bring this property back to its original form. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Thank you very much. Mr. Gallagher. And you ladies that are here visiting for participation in government thought that I was kidding when I said 10 o'clock.
This might be a point of order or agenda. There was supposed to be something for petitions read into the agenda.
Right, submitted
Right.
petitions.
And that is the only part, you just received them?
Yes.
Is it okay for me to say the words of the petition that I provided?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
I was going to hold that because I thought that would be part of the petition process. All right, the name of the petition, or the title, is Protect Dublin Hill. The petition wording is as follows. I am against the cider house proposal for 1381 Sweets Corner Road at the top of Dublin Hill in Penfield, New York, and I ask that the application be denied. Examples of reasons include, but are not limited to, the proposal will create a eyesore, a blight that includes commercial buildings positioned in the middle of the crest of the hill, hilltop, a retail setting, full perimeter 8 to 10 foot fencing, parking, and nuisance outdoor lighting. The proposal would destroy scenic views, view sheds, natural and agricultural beauty of the area rather than protect. The proposal, which includes alcohol production and sales, does not fit the character of the neighborhood or community. That's the wording of the petition that the over 200 people agreed to and signed.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Is there anyone else? Yes. Kaz, do you have the microphone right there? I do. Would you give that to Robin, please? Thank you.
Hi, I just have a question about the moratorium.
Yes.
What's to stop them from, before you get the papers filed, going ahead and selling the property to Walmart or someone else?
Anyone can sell their property at any time, and anyone can buy a piece of property at any time. So the moratorium doesn't stop the sale. What the moratorium essentially says is that nothing can be done, no application can be received until we go through the process. But at any time, someone can sell, and at any time, someone can buy a piece of property. We always encourage Mr. Costello, Mr. Valentine, and our staff, Jeff David and out of their office, we always encourage folks, before you buy a piece of property, make sure you understand what you can and cannot do with that property. Because there's not a lot of sympathy, at least from myself, if somebody buys a piece of property and they find out they can't do something with it that they wanted to do, that's shame on them.
Okay, and one last thing, long-term plans for the quarry. I don't know if any of you have ever visited Victoria, British Columbia, but they had an enormous quarry there, and they turned it into one of the most beautiful gardens in the world, and people come from all over the world to see it. And that could be something we might consider long-term plans for the quarry.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Anyone else that would like to address the board? Okay. Seeing no one else to address the board and no other action to come before the board this evening, I'll declare the March 23rd, 2016 meeting adjourned. This board will adjourn for approximately 5 minutes to give everyone an opportunity that wants to leave for them to do so. Those that would like to stay and listen to the second part, which is our work session, that'll be held in the back of the room, and please feel free to sit in and listen to that conversation. Thank you for everyone that came. Thank you to PCTV.